Assalamu alaikum, WarChronicle viewers. This is your host once again, bringing you greetings from our channel dedicated to the untold stories of our brave armed forces. It's been a while since I posted a video, but better late than never. Today we are going to talk about the role Pakistan Air Force has played in the victory of Pakistan Army at the Battle of Chumb. The battle took place from the 3rd to the 10th of December 1971 during the Indo-Pakistan War of 1971. We've already uploaded an episode regarding the battle from Indian perspective, so do check it out after this one. Pakistani resistance was minimal, and by nightfall, the entire town was in Indian hands. But they were now spread thinly across the front and were vulnerable to encirclement. They also wanted to take Chumb to open a route to Pakistan. Several columns of the 59th and 65th Brigades attacked Indian positions near Che and Rajuri, forcing the defenders to withdraw towards Akur. Simultaneously, another attack was launched near Jorian, but this attack failed due to heavy Indian shelling. Another attack near Kotli was also beaten back. The only success achieved by Pakistani forces was near Che, where they managed to capture the town. Meanwhile, the Indian Air Force conducted several airstrikes on Pakistani positions, especially on the areas near the Grand Trunk Road. Not only this, but the Indian troops also carried out successful attacks on Pakistani positions at Poonch and Rawalkot. This caused heavy casualties among the Pakistani ranks and forced them to move to more interior locations. But Niazi refused and ordered him to carry out the attack on 9th of December. Lieutenant General Aik Niazi, commander of the 25th Infantry Division, ordered one para-brigade, along with a squadron of the 7th Cavalry, to capture the town. This was followed by infantry attacks, but these attacks were easily repelled by the Indian troops. This happened because Pakistani soldiers lacked proper training and leadership. The rest of the day passed off without any major incident. They were now spread thinly across a broad front and were vulnerable to encirclement. According to official Indian sources, the Pakistan Air Force dropped 118 tons of bombs on the Indian positions during the war. In this battle alone, the PAF flew 18 sorties and dropped 35 tons of bombs on the Indian positions. This is recorded in the book War with Honored Scars. Glimpses of Indo-Pak War 1971 by Air Commodore D.C. Sharma. Thus, on December, they decided to retreat to the international border. The only source we have is the book The Story of the PAF by Air Vice Marshal Muhammad Umar. So keep your chins up and eyes on the skies, Salam. According to this book, when Pakistani ground forces were hard-pressed at Cham, PAF launched airstrikes on the Indian positions there. It was said that if the Indian troops were not pushed back from Cham, then PAF would have to bomb the retreating troops from behind. Thankfully, the Pakistani ground troops were able to hold their positions, and PAF never had to fire a shot in anger against its own troops. The Indian forces accepted this offer, and the war ended. Unfortunately, the author has not mentioned the dates of these strikes or the targets that were hit. But he too was captured by the Indian troops. This demoralized the rest of the Pakistani troops who started fleeing the battlefield. As the leaflet said, "Your leadership has failed you. You are surrounded. No one is coming to rescue you. Lay down your arms and return home." Interestingly, the author mentions that some of the Indian soldiers actually surrendered after reading these leaflets. Every attack they launched was being repelled, and they were suffering heavy casualties in the process. The Pakistanis tried to make a last-ditch effort to recapture Che, but even this failed. During this time, Indian forces regrouped and prepared for a counterattack. They realized that if they didn't retreat, then they would be encircled and annihilated by the Indian troops. Thus, Pakistani forces started retreating towards Lahore. On December, Pakistani Major General Niazi proposed to his Chief of Staff, Major General Rahim Khan, that they should launch a surprise attack at Cham, which would divert Indian troops from other sectors and allow them to consolidate their positions. Pakistani forces, however, managed to reach their original positions by nightfall. He planned to use 2 infantry brigades and 2 armored regiments for this attack. With this, the threat to the northern flank of the 19th Infantry Division was eliminated. The Battle of Chumb was fought between India and Pakistan in the Cham-Jorian sector west of the Chenab River in Jammu and Kashmir. The main objective of Pakistan was to capture the strategic town of Chumb, which lies on the Grand Trunk Road, thus opening a direct route to Jammu and New Delhi and relieving pressure on Pakistani forces on other fronts. Now let's begin. They were supported by tanks from the 7th Cavalry. Within hours, most of the Pakistani forces had retreated from their positions. But Pakistani counterattacks throughout the day prevented the Indians from advancing further. So the front line stabilized around 4 p.m. However, the Indian advance into the Chumb region was halted by Pakistani counterattacks. By mid-November, Pakistani forces had captured the town of Che and advanced toward Aknor. At the same time, fighting continued in the Jorian sector, where Pakistani troops were trying to capture the high ground overlooking the town. As Indian reinforcements arrived, Pakistani forces were pushed back to their original positions. But despite this, Indian forces still had not secured their northern flank, and their supply line remained vulnerable to Pakistani interdiction. This vulnerability forced Lieutenant General Jagat Singh Arora, commander of the 19th Infantry Division, to request the Indian Air Force to conduct airstrikes against enemy concentrations in order to secure his left flank along the Jammu Road. Thus, the Indian Air Force deployed 2 squadrons of the new HF-24 Marut fighter bombers to strike enemy positions at Che. These strikes were so effective that Pakistani troops were forced to abandon their positions and flee. This created a gap in the Indian lines and allowed the 19th Infantry Division to advance towards Jaipur. At the start of the war, Indian forces pushed Pakistani troops out of the town of Chumb, which lies on the Grand Trunk Road, thus opening a direct route to Jammu and ultimately New Delhi. On December, elements of the 2nd Battalion of the Punjab Regiment and 1st Battalion of the Sikh Regiment attacked Pakistani positions on the western outskirts of Jaipur. By the end of November, Pakistani forces had managed to stabilize the front line across Jammu and Kashmir. On the other side, Indian forces were also thinking along the same lines. Thus, on 3rd of December 1971, just after midnight, the Pakistani attack began. On the Indian side, a counterattack was launched on 4th of December by the 2nd Battalion of the 1st Punjab Regiment, which recaptured Che from the Pakistanis. Indian artillery bombarded Pakistani positions all night, after which the 1st Battalion, 8th Punjab Regiment attacked. Throughout December, both sides continuously bombarded each other's positions. On 6th of December, Major General Niazi ordered his Chief of Staff to recapture Che, but his attack failed because Indian troops had brought in reinforcements. Pakistani Major General Rahim Khan requested Major General Niazi to postpone the attack on Chumb till 12th of December so that he could bring in more troops. Before launching the attack, Pakistani forces conducted a heavy artillery barrage on Indian positions. When the attack failed, Major General Niazi ordered his Chief of Staff to lead the attack personally. Now, the situation was getting worse for the Pakistanis. Meanwhile, Indian forces continued bombing Pakistani positions. This created a sense of panic among the Pakistani ranks. Indian troops pursued them and engaged them in heavy fighting near Chakri and Jurian. On the 10th, both sides observed a ceasefire. It was during this period that Pakistani forces realized the gravity of their situation. Let's now talk about the role of the Pakistan Air Force in this battle. There is very little information available regarding the role of the PAF in this battle. Also, according to this book, PAF conducted several low-level strikes on the Indian positions. During the war, PAF also dropped leaflets over the Indian positions, offering the Indian troops to surrender. So guys, this was the role of the PAF in the Battle of Cham. And finally, before I go, please don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any new episodes, and like the video for more interesting content.